I tell you, in 1618, something happened that changed Europe forever. In Prague, during the defenestration of Prague, angry Protestant nobles stormed into a royal chamber, grabbed imperial officials, and threw them out of a castle window. And in that exact moment, peace across Europe began to fall with them. What started as a local rebellion inside the Holy Roman Empire quickly exploded into the 30 Years' War, a massive and devastating conflict rooted in deep religious tensions between Catholics and Protestants, but also driven by power, ambition, and control over Europe itself. As Bohemia rose in revolt against the Catholic Habsburg rulers, refusing to accept their authority, triggering a chain reaction across the continent, with alliances forming rapidly, armies mobilizing, and early battles shaking the region, including the crushing defeat of the Bohemian rebels, which restored Habsburg control but failed to stop the war, because by then it had already spread into German territories, where mercenary armies ravaged the land, burning villages, destroying crops, and leaving civilians to suffer hunger, fear, and disease, turning what began as a single act into a conflict that would consume an entire generation. I tell you, by 1648, after 30 years of continuous destruction, Europe had reached a breaking point, and the war finally came to an end with the signing of the Peace of Westphalia, which officially ended the 30 Years' War and brought long-awaited peace to the continent, but at a devastating cost, as millions had died, entire regions were left in ruins, economies had collapsed, and the Holy Roman Empire was weakened beyond recovery, while new powers like France and Sweden emerged stronger, reshaping the balance of power in Europe and introducing a new political system based on state sovereignty, where nations gained the right to govern themselves without outside interference, marking a major turning point in international relations and ending the era of large-scale religious wars in Europe. Yet the scars of the conflict remain deeply embedded in the land and in the memory of the people, proving that a single moment in 1618 had the power to change the destiny of an entire continent forever. I tell you, by 1630, the war had already devastated large parts of Europe, but everything changed when Gustavus Adolphus entered the conflict with a powerful and highly disciplined army, bringing new tactics, mobile artillery, and organized battlefield strategies that shifted momentum in favor of the Protestant forces, allowing them to win major victories and regain lost ground. But at the same time, the 30 Years' War expanded beyond religion into a full-scale power struggle, especially when France joined the war, not for faith, but to weaken the Habsburg Empire and strengthen its own position, turning the conflict into a continent-wide war between major powers, where armies marched across vast regions, cities were destroyed, farmland was abandoned, and millions of civilians suffered from famine, disease, and displacement, as soldiers lived off the land, taking resources and leaving destruction behind, making the war one of the most brutal and chaotic periods in European history, with no clear end in sight. I tell you, after 1648, the war may have ended, but its consequences continued to shape Europe for decades, because the 30 Years' War had not just been a conflict of armies, it had been a disaster for entire societies, leaving behind destruction on a scale that few had ever seen before, as large parts of Central Europe, especially within the Holy Roman Empire, were left depopulated, with some regions losing nearly a third of their population due to constant warfare, famine, and deadly diseases that spread rapidly in the chaos of war, turning once thriving towns into empty ruins and fertile farmland into abandoned wastelands, while survivors struggled to rebuild their lives in a world that had completely changed around them. And as the physical destruction slowly began to fade, the political transformation of Europe became more visible, because the Peace of Westphalia had introduced a new system that reshaped international relations forever, establishing the idea that each state had sovereignty over its own territory, meaning that no external power could interfere in its internal affairs. And this principle became the foundation of the modern state system, influencing diplomacy and global politics for centuries to come. while at the same time weakening the authority of the Holy Roman Empire, which could no longer control its territories as it once had, leading to greater independence for the German states and reducing the empire to a fragmented political structure. And as one power declined, others rose, with France emerging as one